Hello students, I hope you all are fine, and in this video we are going to discuss some other aspects of language integrated query. And if you remember, we did study a lot of other concepts of language integrated query. We studied parts of operation of linq query, we studied parts of expression of linq query, we studied from class, we studied very where clause and then select clause, and also we did study into the last video, that is order by clause. So if I want to sequence the data in the collection that I have actually selected from the data source, I can do that with the help of a order by class, and it can be ascending or descending. Similarly, we have a group by clause into the link query also, and with the help of group by clause we can actually create the subgroups within the collection that we have actually selected from the data source, and those subgroups are created with the help of a key, and the data type of that key uh, can be any type depending on the value that we are actually using as a key. So if you see here in this query, we have actually the query that we have created here is from cust in customers group cust by cust dot city. So we have written this query only just to create a group of customers, not for any other processing or computation on the data source and then the selection. So if you see, customers would be the array that we might have created, you see, and that customers array uh, can be the array of you see, objects of customer class. Okay, so that is the backend perspective that you can understand very well. So customers is a collection, and each value of a customer's collection is holding the object of a customer class, and there can be various you see attributes of that object, that customer object, and those attributes may be the ID of a customer, name of a customer, city of a customer, state of a customer also. So I can make it simple also by writing a little bit of a code here, see on the slide, to understand the backend perspective. So what we are doing here, it's all possible. Maybe we have a class uh, customer with name, and and after that we have created the object array of customer class, and its name is customers. So possible equals to new customer, two objects or 25 objects, and then we might have the customers 0 equals to new customer, and that could be the name John. So that could be the code that we have written already, and by using this code, by using this customers collection, now we are actually executing the link query on this collection. Why? Because to create the groups of customers by using some key, and that key actually in this query is uh, a city. See, city is the key that we are using. Uh, so first I have to remove this one, and after that. So city is a key that we are using to create the groups of customers. So all the customers that belongs to the same city will be in that group. You see, that is organized according to the name of the city. Let's say there are three cities, and 25 customers from three cities, 10 customers from London, and five customers from California. So by using London as a key, we will be holding 10 objects of a customer, and then we can access those groups with the help of for each loop here. As we are using for each loop here. So just in the creation of this query, Just to understand the data type of query customer by city, you see we have written here the data type of query customers by city is actually I enumerable, and in the last lecture we did a study linq query is supported by all the collections, you see, which are supported by I enumerable interface or generic I enumerable interface. So here I enumerable is collection of or collection of I grouping, and I grouping is actually a collection of, you see, customer, and I grouping is using a string at the back end to hold the customer objects of a customer. So query customers by city. Instead of VAR, we can also write this whole thing as a data type for the query customers by city. And these are the data types that are being used at the back end. So what we are doing now, we are actually accessing collection elements from the I enumerable, and those elements are actually I grouping objects, and then we are accessing customer objects, and those are actually stored into the collection within the I grouping also. So using for each loop on the I enumerable, and then for each loop you see on the customer group, that is at the end, that is at the back end, you see. So for each loop var instead of var keyword, we can use this data type here. Why? Because I enumerable is collection of I grouping, and we can put the data type here, you see. But instead of writing that, it's very easier for us to write var, and after that name of variable in query customers by city. And after that, you see, we know I grouping is actually collection of customer, and for that purpose we are using customer here and name of the class, and then the variable customer in customer group. So customer group is actually uh, a variable that we have created here. And by using this variable we can also access the key. And what the key is, the key is actually the column that we used. So the city is the key. So whatever the name of city would be, that will be printed here, and after that whatever the customers that we have grouped with the help of that key, the names of those customers will be printed. The same code, but written into this slide, but a little bit of some extra hints also. So we created array of person class, and then on each location we stored new object of person class, and for each object of person class we assigned three values: one to ID, John to first name, and California to city. And instead of a var keyword, we used the data type. I enumerable is collection of I grouping, and I grouping is actually collection of person. And then the name of variable is group query, and again the same, from person and p array by group person by person dot city. And same code here that we actually understood into the previous slide. Okay, so during this execution of a link query, we are actually accessing more than one records, and this type of execution we also studied into the previous slides is known as deferred execution. And we also studied immediate execution into the previous slides, into the previous video. So link and single record selection query can be used as the immediate execution also. The same code, creation of person object, and then assigning three objects to the array, and from the array we are selecting the date person object, whose ID is actually 2. And we know in this case we have only one object into the persons collection, into the p array collection, and the query will return only the single record. That's why we are actually using the single method. So we enclosed query into the parenthesis, and then after using dot we executed the single method. And with this impact, with this, so the impact of this query will be the returning of the second object with person object with ID equals to 2. And then we are actually showing the name of the person object that we retrieved. So this is single record selection from the set of uh, objects by using the immediate execution with the help of a single method. Okay, this slide is regarding access of or selection of a record from the set of records. But with this, we are going to select only few columns. You see from the selection also. As you can see, if I'm going to select the second object from this collection of 3 person objects, uh, then okay, in this slide, instead of selecting all the columns of this person object, I can also select only few columns. So it's my work, it's my code that will be responsible to select either the ID or the first name or the city, all the columns, or only few. So in this query, we have used a single method to return a single record and to perform the immediate execution. But again, we have written here the code to select only the few columns of that particular object that will be the result of the execution of this query. So from person in PRA, where person.id equals to 2, select the person with ID equals to 2. And what we are going to select, we are selecting uh, the first name and the city, values of first name and the value of a city from this object. You see, instead of selecting all, we are selecting only 2. And how we are doing that? We are doing that with the help of an anonymous type. So if you remember, we did study this concept of this anonymous type in starting lectures when we were actually studying face to face. In okay, during that time we studied this concept. So why we are saying here, why we are saying that we are using here the anonymous type concept, because we haven't used the name of any class here. So we have used new keyword directly, and then we used curly brackets, and inside the curly brackets we used or we created a column with the name username, and we have assigned a value to it, and then we created another column with the value that we are assigning it. So according to the value, the data type of that variable will be set automatically, and there is no name of this class, and we are directly creating object. It means we are actually creating a kind of memory without using the name of a particular class, and that memory will be referenced like we do refer the memory of objects. You see? So this is creation of object by using anonymous type, and in that type we have introduced, or we have created 2 variables, and the data type of each variable is according to the value that we are assigning it. So we are assigning the value to the username is actually the value of first name, and the value of first name is JSON, and the type of JSON would be string definitely. And after the selection, after the execution of this query, we are actually displaying the username. I guess all the concepts of see, selecting the particular columns uh, from the query result are very clear to you. Okay, another concept that we can use in linq is joining. Joining the values, or selecting the values by combining the values from multiple collections. As it is very clear in this query, from customers, customers is one collection, that is collection of objects of customer class, and join destined distributors. Distributors is another collection, that is a collection of objects of distributor class. You see, so cast and dist are the variables that we are using here. So we are joining the collections by using what? On cust.city, use city of customer object, and if that city is equals to city of distributor, then create a new object, and in that new object put the name of customer and put the name of distributor. And after that we can use a loop on that also, on this inner join query also. So accessing only those distributors and customers which have the common setting. Another usage of the join again is visible in this slide. The first collection, first array 1, 2, 3, 5, second collection, second array 3, 3, 5, 6, 3. So with the help of this query, we are actually accessing the common values in between two collections that are 3, 3, 3, 3, and 3. You see, 3 times 3 will be there into the output, and 1 time 5 will be there into the output. So same from first in first array, join second in second array on first equals second, select first. So for each int common in third array, this dot label 1 dot text plus equals to plus common. So the first value, common value will be 3, another value is again 3, another value is 3, and after that there will be 5, that will be the output. So there is actually the usage of a left join and right join also into the link. It's up to you. You have to explore it, and after that you can use them. Well, now we are going to discuss one other very important concept of usage of language integrated query, that is link to SQL. It means we are now going to use link to access the tables of a database instead of accessing the collections directly as we did into the previous slides. Here now we will be using the link to access the tables of a particular database, and after that we may decide which columns we can access or we want to access. So mapping link query with SQL query for querying from database. Uh, the concept behind link to SQL is we will be using the objects or the classes, names of classes, and the link query in order to access the values. But at the backend, SQL query will be used by the link to SQL provider automatically. So for to work with databases by using link, we use actually link to SQL classes. That is the link to SQL data provider that is available into the data category in Visual Studio. You see. After adding link to SQL classes, see, uh, we used to get this kind of interface. You see. And in that interface, we can directly drag a table from a database to create a kind of a schema, you see, and that will be used by the link to SQL classes components. So in this I actually dragged employee table into the interface that is provided to me with the help of link to SQL components. And here actually the entity is created automatically. And when this entity is created, they are actually in Visual Studio, two classes will be created automatically. One class is actually according to the name of entity here, and another class is actually responsible for to create a connection with a database and for to perform operations on a database and for selection of data from a database. And its uh, name of that class will be linked to SQL data context. Data context will be the name that I have actually selected for. Well, after creating this, after creating entity, after getting these classes automatically created by the Visual Studio, we can use these classes directly into our code. And after using these classes, we can access the data of employee table, or we can actually update the data of employee table also. So in this slide, you can see I created object of a link to SQL data context. So link to SQL data context is this class. I created object of this class because this is the class that is responsible for mapping the link query to SQL queries, and after that this class is responsible to create a connection with the database and to perform operations on the database according to the need as we are actually instructing to this class. So we created object of link to SQL data context, and then the data grid view that we have on our form, we assigned it a data source, and data source is actually the source that we are getting from this query from employee in data context dot employees. See, it means by using the object of this, we are actually accessing this objects of this class, objects of this employee class into the employees collection. and then we are selecting each employee, you see, and then we are assigning it to the data source. Let's see this example actually into the Visual Studio, and then I hope all the concepts will be clear for you. Okay, so on the form 4 that I have already added into the project, I am going to add a data grid view. So data grid view is here, and just to explore the table of our database, for class is the database that I created into the previous videos, uh, into the previous lectures, and users is the table that I did create into the previous lectures also. So if you view the data of users table, there are two records in it, and after that you see into the form load event. Here I have to write the code. I have to create the object of data context, and then I have to retrieve the data from table, and then assign the source to grid view. So for that, what I have to do, I have to add a link to SQL components, a link to SQL data component. Add what I have to add into the data category. There is link to SQL classes, so I can choose a name for it. Data context. Data context is added, and I have data context dot uh, you see dbml, and by using this easy, I can directly drag db users, dbo.users to the interface, and here the entity is added when I'll save it. See, after saving it, if you see into the Visual Studio, the data context.dbml is added, and data context.designer.cs is added, and in this C# file I have two classes, data context, and see, another is user class. So now I have to use this one into the program.cs, into the form.cs. So what I'm going to do, data context ob users equals to uh, data context. So it would be better to write data context. This dot grid view dot data source equals to from user data context dot users select user, and that's it. See, I got the data directly with the help of link to SQL classes, and one benefit of this is I haven't created any connection with the database. I haven't wrote any code to create a connection and to close a connection. That is actually being done by the data context dot class directly. So this class is responsible to map our table, you see, with map our user class with the user table of a database, and this class is responsible to actually work with the database. So this class is created automatically, and we don't have to, you see, modify this class without having knowledge. So I hope you got all the concepts, and you will practice this code and the code that is given into the slides, and we'll meet into the next video. Thank you.